but the Office of Naval Intelligence was, I think, ahead of everybody on this stuff. Like
That's who
when
Bob was getting his paychecks from too.
that's fascinating. I've heard that, and I've heard of people high up in the Navy being like, don't can talk about Bob Lazar. And I think Jim Goodall told me an interesting story about that. Actually went into some high up. He was a Navy admiral, and I don't know how many stars, but like, you know, interesting guy. And the guy, I think he had like Bob Lazar's resume or something, and like the guy like freaked out at him, and yeah, and was like I never want to see this again. You know,
that's interesting because there was the whistleblower on 4chan.
Yeah,
and you know, give that as much credence as you'd like, but if you call it whistleblower, whatever. But actually, you know, if true, did a lot more whistleblowing than a lot of people.
Oh yeah,
I know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Didn't get Dobster approved whistleblowing to go on 4chan.
Yeah.
But basically came out and said that like these MCUs, these mobile construction units, were maneuvering, you know, in the oceans and whatnot, and that this guy was part of this crash retrieval system. He was like number 2, which, you know, number 1 gets the bodies in the E-115. Number 2 would get the components on the inside of the craft, and 3 and 4 would take away the bulk. And so that was kind of his job. And somebody asked, well, what about Lou Elizondo and Stephen Greer and like these people? And he answers, I don't know who those people are, but one name you didn't mention is Bob Lazar, and saying that name around here would get you taken out and put down like a dog.
Whoa.
And he goes, do the math on why.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
So, you know, and man, that whole document, that whole Q&A that this guy did on 4chan haunts me to this day, because he said something in there he said, notice yourself coming back to this as more information is discovered or unfolds. And it's exactly what I've been doing. It's exactly what everybody's been doing. My you know, the comments and people watch the videos are all like, dude, this is like what the 4chan guy said. And it keeps coming up.
Yeah.
Every whistleblower, every congressional hearing, that document mentions psionics.
Yeah.
The word psionics.
Did it really?
Yes,
absolutely. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's really fascinating.
It mentions because at one point there was a question, is there any type of like psychic interface or whatever? And he goes, there is one instance of psionics. And he's like, I don't know if it was that or if it was like remote control. So what happened was they got apparently into the craft. The craft was downed, and he didn't seem to think that they were taking them down, by the way. He said that there are certain spots, especially in Mexico, that these crafts would literally avoid because they went down too many times. Like, these guys make mistakes.
Yep.
And he's like, they used to be...
Did he say in Mexico?
Yeah, Mexico.
I've heard some interesting stuff around that.
Yeah,
and that's
like,
what George Knapp just covered in his Netflix doc. So.
And he says they avoid it like the plague.
Interesting.
And he's like, before, we'd see a lot more bodies. But he's like, now they're like pretty much unmanned. Because they've been going down and they know that we've been collecting them. And, you know, even sometimes they it's weird, but they'll like, yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of weird interactions with this stuff. But this time they get called in. So what he assumes, the people go in before him take the element 115, because he said it was 115. And they also...
So you said it was a stable version of it?
He doesn't know. He doesn't handle it. And he said he was surprised that Bob handled it.
Okay.
He's like, because normally it's you don't touch with your hands, and it's only one guy, and it's a very important thing. Like, no one else is allowed even seeing it or touching it. It's so delicate and like compartmentalized, that E-115, because it's like super rare. You can't find it on Earth. Like so one guy gets it and they get the bodies, and once they're out, then Team 2 gets called in. And then Team 2 goes in to clean out like the tools and all of the sort of, you know, compartments and all of the loose hanging stuff, components. And so they go in to do their job, and the back of the craft apparently starts closing, like the hatch starts closing. And he goes, I wish I wore brown pants that day. He's like, it was very scary. And then so they radioed out to Team 1, and they were like, hey, Team 1. And they're like, the door's closing. He goes, hold on. And all of a sudden the door started opening, and he goes, you clear? And they go, yeah. So he knew they had the bodies.
Whoa.
So he's not sure if whether it was like he said maybe it was like a remote control, or these beings were alive. and did that under duress or something.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. One of the darker things that he said in that Q&A was he found one time there was a down craft with an abductee on board.
That's
so dead
right.
person
Yeah.
and pilots.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard of rumors of the Aztec crash in 1948 that 16 little grays
bodies,
or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's I don't know if this is right, but that's actually what caused Forrestal, who was
to go over the edge.
He's very religious, and he was Secretary of the Navy, and then he became Secretary of Defense. And I believe he was speaking to the
priest,
to the head of the Air Force.
Oh.
And was hearing this description of like mutilated like human and alien bodies together, and it sent, and that's he was checked into this Navy hospital in Bethesda, Maryland, very soon after. But this 4chan thing, I mean, you're making me want to just go back and do a deep dive on. I mean, that's amazing.
I read the whole thing, 4 parts.
Yeah,
it's like 4.5 hours total.
Yeah,
of going through the entire.
The mobile construction units where they're each UFO is built to spec, and
giant hamburger-shaped UFOs with no lights on them.
So
they're
weird.
Massive.
Yeah,
they move extremely fast underwater. So this is exactly what Lou was talking about, which came out after once again,
right?
And he said, "You'll come back to this."
Yeah. And he was dying, and so that gave him the liberty to...
That's what he said. If I were to throw a red herring in there...
Sure.
Because a lot of people were like... Because he said he had liver cancer, and he's like, liver cancer will make you do, crazy things and whatever. And people were like, well, that'll just give you away. Because they'll know who has liver cancer.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, that's why he probably doesn't have liver cancer.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's probably why... some other reason. I don't know what it is, but definitely he even said there will be red herrings.
Yep. What else did he say that was proven correct?
That was proven correct.
Or not proven, but corroborated by further testimony.
So this thing is in the region of the Bermuda Triangle, right? So the Atlantic Ocean.
Yep.
And a lot of naval bases there.
Yep.
A lot of things coming in and out of the water.
Yep.
If you look at Nimitz and all that stuff, I mean, this is kind of where we saw Tic Tacs and all of that stuff as well, right? So this is kind of same area. What else was there? I mean, he talked about the Greys, that they were just like great. He did say that they had genitalia.
Interesting.
Which I thought was weird.
Well, that's it cuts against a lot of reports. Yeah.
Yeah. But he did also say 4 fingers. Which does kind of make sense. Yeah, corroborate. But again, I don't think he said. So 2002, he said was a really important date. 2002 is an important year, and he kept emphasizing that. And he said that's when sort of leadership changed, and that's when he left the program. He said the people who were in charge were very much they wanted the story to come out a little bit more. And they were working with the Air Force. Air Force is frustrated because they can't say anything. And they wanted it to come out, but then new leadership came in and tightened down, clamped down in 2002. He's like, that was like, and so that's right after like 9/11, and after, the Pentagon thing happened and all that, right? So I don't know, maybe it has something to do with that, maybe a change at the top, and they were like, hey, right, time to clamp down. Well,
I remember that there was that Rumsfeld speech of like, we're missing over $1 trillion in like the defense budget
right
the
before
day
9/11.
Before 9/11.
Yeah.
And so, and you had, this Catherine Austin Fitts, this sort of whistleblower, government whistleblower, who talks about billions and billions of dollars going missing and probably having to deal with black money. And, I think she actually took an interest in kind of exotic science and technology programs as a result. It sort of led her there, the search.
To this day, they've never passed an audit anyway.
Never passed an audit.
Now.
Never.
So they're not blowing up the Pentagon every other day.
No,
they're just not.
No.
You passing these audits.
Sure. Yeah, no, and I do wonder if something happened at that time. There's also a story of Hal Puthoff advising the George W. Bush administration in I think like the 03-04 timeframe on they did like this net assessment with their national security advisor named Stephen Hadley on whether disclosure would be worth it. And Hal Puthoff is saying this in front of an audience of tons of people at Stanford for the Soul Foundation. And they came out of this assessment saying that they thought it would be too disruptive and not, worth it. And he speaks how sort of cryptically on like what those reasons are, because then you give away what the, maybe underlying truth is.
Sure.
But that's fascinating that he was even in those conversations and that those conversations may have taken place. There's also a woman I've become friends with who's a great UFO researcher whose father is sort of a legend in the UFO world because he's been tweeting so much, and very sadly he just passed away. Her name is Pippa Malmgren, and her father is Harold Malmgren, and she was special assistant to George W. Bush. And doing I think on his like economic council, and she said some interesting things about that review, and I think they may have been reading the 3-body problem.
Whoa,
which is pretty interesting.
I keep hearing that, man.
Yeah.
A lot of people think it has to do with like the date being thrown around and that type of deal. It's like,
right.
And you think of, if that is the case, if we know of some encroaching Oumuamua or whatever it is, coming here, some massive mothership or whatever, giving us a heads up on some level, we might just be in a race.
Yep.